So with that, Marie, where are you dialing in from again?
Yeah, so I am coming in from Boston. I am our community engineer. I am basically focused on all the processes and stuff around drones community as well as harness community. So if you see anything that you need or can be updated, please let me know so I can actually update those to make our onboarding and everything much easier. Here are some community resources. Our home is drone.io. We have our docs installation under that same URL under the docs tab. You can find our repo under GitHub. It's just searching under the harness and then into drone, and then our discourses for like any major questions, bug reports, and then our Slack channel also questions. If you need help with anything, you could also set up a meeting time with me, and our Twitter and Harness Drone meetup page, which seems like everyone found that page. And then next I'll just pass it to Dan.
Thanks, Marie. So yeah, my name's Dan Wilson. I'm a front-end engineer on the drone team. Been with Harness for about nearly 6 months. So yeah, any front-end features or bugs that have been fixed in the last couple of months have been my dirty work. So yeah, I'll pass over to TP.
Hi everyone, my name is TP Honey. I am based out of Belfast in Northern Ireland, just off the coast of Europe. I've been with Harness now for almost exactly 1 year, so I'm expecting a brilliant birthday present from Harness. Previous to working on drone, I worked for Puppet and spent about 6 years working on the open source there, all to do with modules, so everything from Apache to networking. So far, probably the thing that I've loved most about drone is just getting to work in open source again and just seeing how people use drone. It's crazy, like the number of things I've seen working with drone, like from Linux ports of Battlefield games to Android development to conversion of Linux modules. It's been pretty amazing. So yeah, it's good to be here, and I look forward to some of the pull requests from the community. So on that, I'm going to nominate Marko.
Hi, my name is Marko Gacesa. I'm from Serbia, working primarily on backend stuff. So I'm a Golang developer. Well, I'm working in Go for the last, I don't know, 6 years professionally, and that's it. So in Harness, I'm a little bit, maybe 8 months in June. Well, I guess that's it.
Cool.
Eoin.
Yeah, last person is Eoin. He's in the car, but he's another one of our engineers. And then we have Nofar, who's our product management person. And then yeah, that's it. Dave.
All right, and I think I can take it from here. So I'm Brad. I'm the founder of Drone and its primary architect. And since it's been quite a while since we've done a meetup, probably since I think 2015. Sorry about that. We wanted to give an intro to Drone, talk a little bit about its history. There's a lot of folks that are new to Drone, new to the community, and maybe seeing this for the first time. So we wanted to give a little bit of background on the system, how it works. And then once we do that, we'll get into, some of the new features, which will probably be interesting to, the drone veterans that are dialed in or watching this. So Drone was launched in 2012. So that makes this year its 10-year anniversary. If you don't know anything about Drone, it's a CI system. It's built with Go. It's open source. You can find it on GitHub at github.com/harness/drone. It's built on Docker. Drone was in 2012. That's right when Docker came out. So Drone was the first container native CI system on the market. So if you've seen other container-based CI systems, Drone really paved the way there. Drone is multi-OS. So you can use Drone for Linux builds, Windows builds, Mac builds. It's multi-architecture. We support AMD 64, ARM 32, ARM 64. We even have people using Drone on PowerPC and IBM X series chips. We have native integrations with GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Git. Main thing to know about Drone is it's self-hosted. You know, in 2012, a lot of startups in the CI space were working on cloud solutions. We really wanted to give people a better alternative to Jenkins, something that you could install and run on your own servers, right? In 2012, a lot of companies, and that still remains the case today, want their CI infrastructure to be on their own servers. They don't want their secrets, their code, leaving their environment or running on shared servers in multi-tenant environments. And one of the core values of Drone is simplicity and really a simple install. We want it to be really easy to get up and running with the product. And this is actually a slide from, I think, 2013 that I brought over. You can run Drone in a single command. That was the goal when we first created the project. You can install Jenkins in a one-line command. We wanted to make sure Drone was just as easy to install. So if you're new to Drone, you can just run this Docker command. You got to do a little bit of GitHub setup, but this will actually launch the Drone server, and you can go log right in, and it automatically syncs with your GitHub account, uses an embedded SQLite database. Of course, you can always scale out, add more databases, more infrastructure, but we like to keep it really simple, and we don't introduce complexity unless you need it, right? That's one of the core Drone values. You know, how do you get started with Drone, right? So we saw how to install it. Once you run the Drone server, you can log right in with your GitHub account. It automatically syncs with all your repositories, whether that's GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, etc. And when you log in, you navigate to a repository, and it's a one-click integration. You click Activate Repository, and Drone goes and it, you know, does everything you'd expect under the hood, sets up your webhooks in GitHub. And really then the next step is to configure a pipeline. Like most modern CI systems, Drone uses configuration as code. So once you've activated your repository, you're going to define a pipeline by creating a YAML file and checking that into your repository. And so I wanted to go over you know, what a Drone YAML looks like. I think you can tell a lot about a CI system by analyzing the YAML. And so we're going to go through and analyze the Drone YAML at a high level. There's certainly much more to it. We can't go through everything, but hopefully this gives you a feel for it. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you see a sample pipeline configuration for a repository that has a backend written in Go and a front end written in Node. We have two steps. The first step is to run Go build, Go test. We execute that inside of a container. The great thing about this is it means you bring your own build environment, right? If you think back to, you know, pre-2012, when folks were using Jenkins, you know, if you needed Go installed on a Jenkins server, you had to SSH into that server and install it. If you needed Node installed or upgraded, you had to SSH into that server and install it. And that was really one of the innovations that Drone brought to the table by being container native, is that your build runs inside of a container, which means anyone can bring their own build environment as long as it's coming from a valid Docker registry. So let's explain real quickly what's going on under the hood. So if you're familiar with Kubernetes, this syntax might look similar. When you define a pipeline, you define you know, the object type, and you say it's type Docker. We won't delve too much into this, but the takeaway here is Drone pipelines can run as Docker containers. They can run as Kubernetes pods. We can even spawn VMs. So we have a ton of flexibility into how your pipeline runs, and you have different options based on you know, what's the best use case for your repository. But in this case, we're going to focus on Docker because it's the most simple. So when Drone starts a pipeline, it's going to clone your code into a volume, a Docker volume. So first thing we do under the hood is we create that volume. Then when we go to execute, you know, the first step, which is this Go step, under the hood, it's really just as simple as a Docker run command. So we're mounting your source code. We're setting that as the working directory. And then we're running go build and go test in your container. And then the same thing for the node step. We're running npm install, npm test for this node step. A pipeline failure is if all of these executions return a 0 as an exit code. If the Docker run returns a non-zero exit code, that indicates the pipeline is failing. And by default, the pipeline exits immediately on failure. It doesn't execute subsequent steps. Drone supports services. So for integration tests, you might need to spin up MySQL as a service. And we use Docker networking to connect everything up to make sure you can communicate intra-container. Another thing worth talking about is drone plugins. This was also another major innovation in the drone space, which is how drone did plugins. If you're familiar with Jenkins and you ever had to write a Jenkins plugin, you were doing that as a jar file and you're coding against their Java API. And then someone needs to, essentially install that plugin in Jenkins. It also means someone needs to maintain and upgrade that plugin. The great thing about drone plugins is, like everything, plugins are just containers. So in this example, we have a Slack plugin. It's a Docker image that gets downloaded, and the entry point of that container sends a Slack notification. So it's literally just a Docker run. And the reason this is important is because plugins are containers, it means anybody can publish their own plugin to any Docker registry. They can write it in any language they want, and they can share it with their team or the broader community. And in fact, we have hundreds of plugins in our marketplace at plugins.drone.io. And if this is something that interests you, definitely check out the drone documentation at docs.drone.io. We explain it a bit further. So in a nutshell, that's kind of drone, how it works, and how you execute pipelines. So for those folks who are already using drone and are, want a recap of some of the cool features we added, some of which you've probably already seen, maybe some of which you haven't used yet, I wanted to review those. So in 2021, we launched Drone 2.0. That came with a new look and feel. This was really the first time we were able to take advantage of the resources that Harness brought to the table when it acquired Drone. Harness has a large design team, I think about 15 people. And so we were able to leverage a lot of their design work that they had built for their commercial products. And they were happy to donate those designs to the community and to Drone. We added a really cool pipeline graph view, which we'll see later, pipeline templates, which we'll go into detail later in this pitch, debug mode, user management, and secret management. These were some of the main features. Of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Drone spans hundreds of repositories. Everyone that introed themselves earlier is, doing code reviews, bug fixes, reviewing and merging community pull requests. So there's, these are just the highlights, but there's a ton going on behind the scenes for Drone. So this is an example of the visual, pipeline view and Drone 2.0. So the great thing about this is if you're running complex pipelines and you're fanning out and fanning in and you're doing graph-based execution, you now have a way to visualize that in the user interface, in addition to the previous log view. We also added debug mode. This is probably one of my favorite features. Sometimes it can be really difficult to debug why a pipeline is failing, right? It's the old, it ran on my computer, why doesn't it work in Drone? And that can be really painful to debug. Often you see people make a YAML tweak, push it, it fails. They make another tweak, they push it, it fails. And it can be really frustrating to debug. So when this happens, you can actually rerun a pipeline in debug mode. And what will happen is you'll see here, this button will appear in the bottom right corner to open a remote session. So you can either SSH in or you can click that button and it'll actually open a new browser tab and it'll give you an interactive terminal directly into the container. So you can start to poke around and see why things failed. For example, in this demo or in this particular screenshot, it was an NPM failure. NPM failures are easy to debug as long as you have access to the logs. Before, this was really painful with CI systems, right? How do you get access to generated files? And you know, with debug mode, that becomes really easy. You can jump right into a shell and you can cat the file and you can start to play around. So if you haven't tried out this feature, it's opt-in debug mode for security reasons. So you can enable this for your runners and start using it today. This is just a quick one. User management historically was done from the command line tools. We've added screens for that and brought that to the UI. Secret management, specifically organization secrets. If you're not using organization secrets today, they can be really useful to share secrets across multiple projects so that you only have to manage and update them in one place. Previously, secret organization secrets were managed from the command line. We've brought that to the user interface. So when you click your repository settings, you have the option to manage both repository secrets or organization secrets, as you see here on the screen. Templates, this is another really great feature that we added. And you know, let me describe the problem statement to see if that resonates with everyone. You know, we heard people say, I use the same YAML for 50 repositories. It's almost the same. And every time I need to make a pipeline change, now I need to go and make it in 50 places. Can't I reuse, you know, my YAML? And so that's the goal with templates. If you look on the right, we have a YAML. And maybe the only thing that's different is the name of the Docker image that we publish, right? We run go build, we run go test, we publish an image. The image name is the only thing that changes per repository. So we can now parameterize that, right? So you can put in this template syntax. We use go template syntax. You can parameterize this, and then you can go into the user interface, into the template section, and you can save this as a template. And then you can use that across all your repositories. So what does that look like? On the left, this is what your drone YAML becomes. Your drone YAML is now just a pointer to the template. And in this date, so you have this load section, which is the name of the template you want to load. The data section, which is a list of key value parameters that you want to pass in. And so this drone YAML on the left, when drone gets your YAML to run a pipeline, it detects that it's a template. It's going to load this template on the right, and it's going to fill it out with all of your parameters. So, you know, this is really great for organizations that, you know, want to have centralized configurations and they don't want the burden of updating YAML in multiple places. So in a nutshell, yeah, that was 2021. Now I'm going to send it over to Dave to talk about 2022.
Great, thanks. All right, so again, I'm stepping in for Nofar on this, and I'll do the best I can to fill in her shoes, but let's go ahead and get started on what we should expect in the next year. So first of all, I know that these two are in process of being released, and hopefully soon. We've got high availability for the drone server. And so, you know, you guys know what high availability is. It's going to give us the ability to do that more reliably, you know, keep it up and running for the drone server. And the next one is the AWS runner. So this is a runner to build, to run builds on AWS VMs. So today, apparently you can do that with using the autoscaler, but the autoscaler has some problems. And so this is a new and improved way to do it that we recommend. And those are, yeah. And then the next one is plugin cards. So this is based on the idea of adaptive cards you may have heard of. And so this is a plugin. These plugin cards are a way for you to, for plugins to extend the drone UI and augment your CI with, you know, high-level visualizations. And what we're doing is we're opening up our API so, you know, anybody can create a plugin card like this. Next, from popular demand, we've got a Sneak plugin. And so this will enable you to use Sneak to scan your containers. And of course, that's like, you know, after you build them, then the scan occurs, and then you publish your artifacts. And then there's a harness plugin, which basically enables you to more seamlessly trigger like the harness CD process in the current generation of harness CD, which you should probably all have expected. And harness also has contributed a number of plugins. So there's going to be a Artifactory plugin. So this enables, builds, and publishes the artifacts to the JFrog's Artifactory. And then we've got the Sneak plugin I mentioned. That's, has the image scanning, we talked about, I just talked about. Then there's also another plugin that is for Builda, which is from Red Hat, and I think it's for OpenShift. And this is a container alternative to Docker for building and publishing images. So we'll have support for that. We'll also have support for Conoco. There'll be a Conoco plugin, which is from Google. And this is another alternative for building Docker containers, but this one's designed for by Google and designed to run with Kubernetes, in Google. And then to just make things easier in general, we're making some improvements to the website, specifically around the plugins. So this will enable you to find plugins easier and documentation for those plugins, make it easier for you to find and use plugins. And it'll also support both drone and harness CI. So there's be a little bit of use of the new functionality we're adding by both products, and some other technical debt, which you probably don't care about because it's behind the scenes, but those improvements will be coming. And then finally, there's going to be further interoperability between and compatibility between drone and harness. So, we want to make sure that benefits and features that are added to either product can be shared among both of them. So that's what I've got for you up and coming. I'm sure there's going to be more, but this is all we're ready to talk about at this point. And at this point, we can go ahead and turn it over to questions. So Brad, why don't you just click on the next slide, or you can leave it here actually. If go ahead and leave it back there so that folks can take notes if they want. And yeah, so go ahead, and if you have questions, we
We
can.
have quite a few in the chat.
What's that?
We have
Yeah, there's quite a few. Okay, let's take a look at them. All right, let's take a look here. So I know there were two earlier questions. I think you already answered in the chat, but I'll just read them real quick. There was one about when will the drone runner cube get official 1.0 release? And you answered that we don't know yet. And then, and how many users are Kubernetes based? I don't know if you answered that one.
So I from the Kubernetes runner, Marko, who's on the call, he's been working on that. The biggest challenge we've had with the Kubernetes runner is not all clusters are configured the same. And so, we actually have customers today running the Kubernetes runner on their cluster and putting significant build volume through it, and they're not hitting any issues. And then we may see another, community member or customer try to spin up the Kubernetes runner on a different cluster. Maybe it's a different vendor, maybe they're using a different container runtime, and they hit issues. And so I think that's been the big struggle is, trying to test and make sure it works in all possible versions of Kubernetes, because we rely on a lot of different parts of the platform. And so there's a lot of testing going on. I think Marko's on like release candidate 12. I didn't think it'd go past 3. So, we're definitely working on it. And the goal is to have that out, in the first quarter of this year, hopefully. But we don't want to stamp something GA if there are some really significant known issues. So we'll do our best.
This might be a good time to just mention that, a big reason why we're having this meetup and why we're investing in community resources for drone is to create more opportunity to have you be involved. So I'm speaking without any support on this, or I shouldn't say support, any previous discussion on this, but I would imagine if you want to try out the early version of it, maybe you can talk to Marko and see if you can get access to it and start using it now. We'd love to get people to try things early and give us feedback while we're still getting it to GA. All right, so there's another question here. Where to go? Okay, so from Brian, he says that they're doing 1,600 builds on drone daily and are wondering when they will be able to use multiple conversion extensions together.
Got it. Hey, Brian. Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I think it's a request we've gotten before. It's come in some of our community channels, but I think I kind of have two answers for you on this one. Number one is I know that you guys are doing the paths changed extension. So first part of the answer to this is really like, we need to get that into drone core, that kind of capability. So I think if we were to split this into tasks, I would love to bring paths change and better mono repo support directly into drone core. That way you didn't have to have multiple extensions. So that'd probably be the phase one. And, that's something, after this call, we'll talk to the team about, right? I mean, as Dave said, that's why we're doing this. This is a good forum to just bring stuff up and get it in front of us. But I'd love to see better mono repo support in drone core, and we've kind of let it baked for a couple of years. So there's really two different extensions that handle mono repos. So we really just have to pick one, and that will be the recommended way to handle it in drone. So we'll take that offline as like an action item to get back to you. If paths changed is supported directly in drone, it probably makes it less of a priority, I'm guessing, to support multiple extensions. But with that being said, that's still something we can do. So yeah, we'll get back to you on that. I know your email. I know where to find you.
All right, sounds good, Brad.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, we got another one here from Juniper. Is there a way to have the templates stored in your repo and pull from there rather than having to manually load the template?
Not yet. So to start it out, we wanted to, the quickest way to bring the feature was to have it managed directly from the drone database. But as a next step, I think, that'd be a really cool feature to be able to load templates, directly from a repository. And I think it's pretty feasible. If you look at the syntax, if let me jump back to it, where we say load docker.yaml, you could imagine us adding like a repo parameter specifying exactly which repo, maybe even which branch you want it from. So, I don't have an answer to if or when, but again, let's take that offline and we'll get back to you as an action item. Juniper, we know where to find you in Slack. So yeah, we'll get back to you this week on that.
Okay, we got another question here from Eric. Does HA for server include running drone as multiple server pods on Kubernetes?
Yes. So the way high availability works today. So the reason we didn't have high availability in the past is that streaming and the log streaming and the event bus were embedded in the server. And so as a result, there was no great way to distribute the server itself across multiple pods or put it behind a load balancer. So what we've done is it's still embedded, right? So, we still want to make it very simple to set up drone. So it's embedded by default. But if you want to run an HA configuration, we now support event bus and streaming through Redis. So you can set up a Redis cluster, or more likely, if you're using AWS, GCP, you can use their hosted Redis clusters. And that's what will allow you to run drone in high availability with multiple server instances. So yeah, absolutely, that's possible. I do want to say, we launched HA in beta. I think we just merged the docs, I think today, in fact, yesterday. So we need, HA needs time, right? We need testing and time before we're willing to say, hey, this is battle tested. So that's why we launched it in beta. The great thing about drone being open source, I think we got 10,000 plus installations. And so as folks start to test this out, we expect that, if there are any issues, we tend to find them fast, just given the breadth of the drone community. So, take it for a spin. Let us know if you have any questions, run into any issues, post to the Slack channel, file an issue. We're eager for feedback there.
Yeah, and we're also constantly updating the docs as well. So we're going through an internal review process and just constantly improving that. So it's difficult to make something, but it's also difficult to get. Or we're trying our best to make it easy for other people to come on board with this so they get up and running fast and are able to use it.
Okay, I think you just answered that. Does HA for server include running drone as multiple server pods, or did you? I didn't quite get that.
So with the zones, so I see from Juniper, multiple zones and regions. So Juniper, the answer to your question is there shouldn't be any limitations at the drone level that would prevent multiple zones or regions. You would just have to make sure that, for example, Postgres is set up. Maybe for something like multi-zone replication and failover, and same with the Redis cluster, but there's nothing about its architecture that would be zone or region specific.
Okay, great. All right, then I got a question. Actually, I haven't read this one yet. Maybe we should read it first from Jim. Templates are a great feature, but our teams would like a way to manage templates on their own rather than at the global level. Maybe there could be a template namespace where groups of users could have write, modify, access.
Yeah, so Jim, great question. So right now, templates are actually at the organization level. So I think it's anyone, I'd have to check. I think it's anyone with right admin to the organization. Actually, as I'm saying that, I don't know what right access to an organization means. I'd have to check. But someone with the appropriate level of organization access can manage pipelines and share those across the org. So they're global only to the organization. So it would depend on, what sort of organization level your team members have. But I think your question, going back to what Juniper asked about sourcing templates from a repository, I think that might also be very interesting, right? Then you can have, shared repos of templates, or, folks don't have to have admin access to the org to manage templates in the database. Though those can all be done through Git and the repositories they already have access to. So, Jim, do you think that would, be interesting to you guys, repository-based templates?
Yeah, that sounds like a great option.
Great.
Okay, let's see. Any scanning capabilities to manage NPM security?
So I'm guessing, maybe Dan can chime in. He's our front end expert. I'm not sure too familiar with NPM security, but this sounds like a great use case for a plugin. Earlier we talked about drone plugins and how plugins kind of like a discrete task that runs inside of a container. So when I look at something like this seems like the perfect use case for a plugin, where you have a plugin that runs some type of NPM security scan and publishes the results. You heard Dave earlier talk about our plans for UI plugins, so you can actually publish data visualizations back to your build. So I could see this being a drone plugin, publishing data visualization right back, so you can actually see structured and visualize that data in the user interface. I'm not aware of an NPM security scanning plugin. It might be worth Googling or maybe throw a note in our community chat room, and maybe folks can share if they've already created one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, TP.
No, I was just going to say that in terms of scanning, like we've had a look at Sneak and we have other scanners there. So NPM, like if it's a community need, we can look at that.
Yeah. So that, yeah, as Brad and TP was saying, my thoughts were immediately kind of towards the Sneak plugin that we're creating kind of adaptive cards for But then also, NPM has kind of built into its workflow recently, not recently, but over the last year or so, NPM audit. So I'd be curious how that can be used, leveraged kind of in a drone YAML to kind of cancel a build if there's any high kind of priority fixes required. So
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I would say is Bala, it's a great suggestion. We have in our discourse forum, I think we have an ideas section where folks can post ideas. That's always a great way to tell us what you're thinking. Tell us about the use case. What problem are you trying to solve internally? Do you have a suggestion for how it can be done? Even if you don't want to build the plugin yourself, sometimes if you can map it out for folks in discourse, it makes it really easy for either us or even another community member to come in and create a plugin. So, definitely feel free to use the forum or Slack to share your ideas and in some cases educate us, because we may not use every language or be familiar with all the different ecosystems.
Cool. And guess what? We have a response from Eric. He says, I will test any update features for Drone Runner Cube. So already this meetup is paying off.
We'll hold you to it, Eric.
Yeah, it's going to hold his feet to the fire. All right, great. Thanks, Eric. All right, so another question here from Jean-Paul. Any plans to support partial restart of a pipeline, such as restarting from a failed step instead of restarting the whole pipeline?
So the big challenge here is drone pipelines are ephemeral. And so if a pipeline fails, you lose everything that was on disk, or I'm sorry, when the pipeline completes, you lose everything on disk. So the big challenge with restarting at an individual step is, do we execute the clone? Do we not execute the clone? Did you, if a Docker build, let's say the Docker build step fails, did you need to previously run an npm install? Did you need to run unit tests? Did you need to generate any artifacts that needed to be included in that Docker build? It kind of because of the ephemeral nature of the pipelines, it makes restarting at an individual step, slightly tricky. I think, that's a great example. We have a page, github.com/drone/proposal or proposals. I can't remember if it's singular or plural, but it's a great place to, there's a lot of noise in the discourse forum, just because we're doing all kinds of stuff in discourse, right? Support and answering questions and, but proposals is a great place to propose an idea, and it's a place to craft and think through these types of challenges. If we know that we can solve these types of problems and the feature can be useful, that's a great place to work it out. And so, as you have these kind of requests, that would be my recommendation, throw a proposal, and then we can have these conversations in a GitHub issue and we can amend that proposal over time.
Okay, good. And then we got a +1 here for drone core monorepo support, and another comment from Juniper saying she might be a little loud. And by the way, yeah, keep the ideas coming. I'll just comment again, a big reason why I've been hired, and we're going to hire a few more to be part of our community, is to be able to have more of this kind of engagement. Because our team, our software engineers they're booked. They are slammed trying to get work done. And now we're going to be able to provide some of that community interaction that has just been missing just because they've been so busy. And that includes this kind of feedback and filtering the feedback and discussing the feedback, that kind of thing. So yeah, please let us know what you have, and it makes my life more interesting too. Marie, I'm sure, is nodding her head. Okay, so yeah, we do review like any issue you bring up. We haven't done this yet, but we'll probably be opening up issues on GitHub again. Again, they were just so slammed, they're just getting behind, so they sent everyone over to the forum to discuss, but we'll probably open them up on GitHub if that's something that you guys would like us to do, just to have it all in one place. Okay, and then Eric says, any plans to update the Helm charts for drone? They seem abandoned. Oh. Also, will the support for HA be included in a future chart?
Yeah. So yeah, the Helm charts were actually donated by a guy at Reddit. and he had maintained those for a while, and then he left Reddit and he went on, to do other things. And so, as a result, he hasn't been, able to maintain or keep up with the charts. I think admittedly, and we want to be transparent, admittedly, the drone team actually we don't have a ton of Kubernetes expertise, right? Drone was born in the Docker era, and, the Docker runners are our most stable runner. And so, we haven't built up the Kubernetes expertise that we need. The good news is that drone is, part of Harness now, and Harness has a ton of Kubernetes expertise. And so, what we've asked for, we haven't gotten it yet, but what we've asked for is, at some point this year, and this year sounds like a long time, but I would say like in the first quarter, our hope is someone with Helm expertise within the company can help guide us on it. We just really need help. The challenge is, anything we merge, we want to be able to support. That's hard to do when your team's lacking the expertise. And so, it's something we want to fix. So we're aware of the issue. We've made some requests internally for some help, and hopefully we'll have something to share, in one of our future meetups.
Okay, I think that's it for the major questions. If you have any more questions, please, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes here. So go ahead and type them in here and we'll try to get to them. But I know that some folks are going to drop off soon. So we want to keep, and I know you've got to go, Brad. So we'll wrap it up pretty quick here. A couple of things I just want to mention is that we have moved the drone discourse forum. We've, Harness has acquired a couple of different companies, and rather than having forums all over the place, we're going to put them all into one. And so from now on, for forum discussion, you can go to community.harness.io, and you'll see the forum there. And there we kept all of the categories from the drone forum. So nothing's been moved or changed. Maybe the name has been changed to be a little bit more clear about that it's a drone category, not just a support category in general. But everything's still there. Nothing's been removed. It's just easier for us to have one place for all of this. So if you have any suggestions about how to make that work better, please let us know. And is there anything else, Marie, that we're missing or that we haven't mentioned?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, anybody else have any comments before we wrap things up? I think we did a pretty good job today, especially for our first time.
Thanks for asking all these questions too. I know it's not easy to be the first person to ask questions.
Can we save this chat, Dave? I want to make sure we get back to everyone.
I copied all the questions as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
thanks.
great. Thanks. Yeah, I know.
I'll be posting a recap in the Slack channel for all the questions that people have asked.
Great. Okay, great. All right. Well, then with that, we'll bid adieu. Thank you for joining us from whatever time zone you are in. And I'll just say one last thing about time zones. It's kind of a nightmare to try to figure out when to do these things. But early morning Pacific coast seems to work well because we can get all the way to India if someone stays up late there. Yeah. So it's a pretty decent. And we kind of miss some folks in Australia, New Zealand, and China. So apologies for that. But if you're joining from one of those areas or watching the recording and you want us to do it in a time zone familiar with you or compatible with you, let us know and we'll try to accommodate that once in a while. All right. With that, thanks very much, Brad. Thank you for putting that together and sharing all the information with us. And a good shout out to Nofar as well, who couldn't be here, but gave me the notes that she would have presented. And to the drone team, thanks for all joining us from your time zones. And Marie, thank you. It's fun doing this for the first time with you, and look forward to doing more. All right, folks. See you next month and see you online.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.